I am delighted and honored to welcome today's speaker, Jake Spotted Wolf. And there's some words in here that I hope I'm going to get right. Jake is a water protector, native rights, and decolonization worker living in Detroit. Her homelands are in the Fort Peck, Montana region. She is an enrolled member of the Mandan, Hidatsa, and Arikara tribes of North Dakota, and is currently raising her 2 nephews who also come from the Fort Peck region. She is currently organizing around a land back project near Core City in Detroit, meant to be a ceremonial space, a place for accessing culture, and a place to build community. Jake organizes with the Techihila Collective and other indigenous organizations around land-backed and mutual aid principles. Welcome, Jake.
It's like the guy walking down the hall and he continues to walk and he continues to walk. He never gets to the door. But this is a beautiful, beautiful podium. And you did say all those pronunciations right. Thank you for that introduction. Good job. It's not easy. Words in Lakota and Hidatsa, all those are a little complicated sometimes. And she is right. I'm Jake Spotted Wolf. My Lakota name is Owamni Washte Okangu Winyan. And that translates to walks the good road woman in Lakota. And I am from the Fort Peck region. Our homelands are out there in Montana. Thank you for that introduction. A big Wopila Tanka to Marcia and to the Chrismans. Marcia set this whole thing up, and the Chrismans hosted me in their beautiful, beautiful home out here in Midland, and that was a treat, huge treat. And good luck to those youth, being brave enough to say what's going on in your lives up here. And being brave enough to enter into your healing journey is a big deal. And hearing you guys talk about that openly, I work a lot with youth, so that's a big step, and I wish you tons of luck on that journey. And I will also just be writing in grants from now on. Please donate to me. No more with the huge paragraphs and all why I was doing it wrong this whole time. I'm just going to ask that you please donate to me and hope that works. That's amazing. So I'm up here today. May 5th is MMIW Awareness Day in our communities. MMIW stands for Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women. Now we refer more to, some people use P, some people use R, because it encompasses all relatives. MMIR, and we do have a huge epidemic of, it's not just women anymore, it's children, it's a youth, it's men, two-spirit, are being kidnapped and trafficked off of reservation territory and in urban spaces quite commonly all throughout the United States. And the reason that that's a problem is because it's underreported, we're misidentified when it comes to FBI tracking in regards to our ethnicity, so we're not counted in as a population that has this huge epidemic. So we're kind of left, we're not funded, we're not researched, we're not given access to resources to help, find our people, and it's a huge problem. And this all started back, during settlement, colonization. At one point, the armies realized the smallpox blankets are doing the job of what warfare could be doing, and you can introduce, starvation as a means of running your population out, the native population. And then they did turn to violence towards women and children, because predominantly across Turtle Island, which you guys know as America, in North America, it's a lot of matriarchy in the bands and the nations across the United States. And I think they understood and knew that if you can break the spirit of the women and of the children, then you will break the spirit of the warrior who was there to protect their population, their tribes. And then you could break the nation as a whole. And that worked, in a lot of ways after all of the warfare and the, buffalo hunts and removing our food sources, they went right for the women and children. So breaking the spirit of the women and that legacy that has continued on of ripping children from Native parents during the residential school era, during the 60s scoop. These are both historical times in our history as Native Americans, where the children were taken from our homes, ripped from us, put into systems where they were, told to be a different ethnicity, believe in a different belief system, speak different languages, and that eventually will, destroy the core fabric of a community. So now we are looking at this epidemic of women being trafficked off of reservations, and largely that came with the help of a Supreme Court ruling, Oliphant versus Suquamish in 1978, where a white man had been accused of sexual assault of a woman out in Suquamish territory, and that's out in Washington, Pacific Northwest, what you guys know as Washington. And they took it as far as the Supreme Court that white people could not be tried for crimes against Native people in a tribal court. So as much as we have sovereignty, right? Sovereignty, and that was granted to us in the treaties, because I told Marcia that's what I'd talk about treaties today a little bit, touch on how it all envelops the MMIW epidemic, that white folks cannot be tried in a tribal court under our sovereignty. And that's how we handle our laws, that's how we handle our, punishment system, whatever you want to call it, consequences, that if you committed a crime, you were then sent back to the state or the county to have to handle it. There's this thing called racism, right? Racism that exists here in Turtle Island. And when the case is kicked out, and when there has been perpetration that's happened, to a Native body, and it is by a white-bodied person, they won't be tried oftentimes because there's not resources, there aren't people that are coming in to help the victim that is of the tribal court. So traffickers know this, right? Traffickers know this, and we have this element of who cares what happens to the brown people out there. The faster we die off as a Native population, the colonization project can continue, and they can have the rest of the land, and they can take that. And in the broken treaties part of this is the fact that the government has never honored a treaty in the time that they have made them here on Turtle Island. It's like a hobby. They outdo each other in how fast and how much they can break a treaty and break a promise with tribes, no matter what region they're in. And that oftentimes looks like resource extraction projects, right? Where they'll use eminent domain to come in and say, we have to do this for infrastructure for, the rest of the people that live that aren't just Native here. So we're going to use eminent domain to break this treaty. And so we're going to bring our pipeline into your ground. That's what happened at Standing Rock. That's what happened at Line 3, Keystone XL. That's what's happening at Line 5. And that's how this impacts and affects you guys, right? This is going to happen here. Eventually, we had a win recently with, it was kicked out of the federal court, moved back to the state court. So that's a good thing. It bought us some more time because with this administration, it's all about resource extraction. There's no human rights happening now. And that means that we were already very vulnerable, and now we're extremely vulnerable as a population because those pipelines there's Bad River out in Wisconsin. They rerouted it, took it around the reservation, but it didn't mean that wasn't impacting those tribal waters where sustenance fishing is happening all the time, right? Like that's how we feed our families. There's the ricing that happens out there. They put that pipeline all along the tributaries around it. And so now 13 more tributaries could be impacted rather than just that little crook in the river at Bad River. So that's in Wisconsin. It's going to happen here. And the devastation will be real, right? This will be the climate refugees place. The Great Lakes region is where other people are going to come. And if we don't get serious and honest about that, it's going to impact everybody pretty severely. So it's just a means of trying to bring home how things that impact Native populations will always impact the rest of the population. It's just going to take more time. And bringing awareness to it is how we hopefully start to run it down and do, take action, like that march, the bridge march you guys had. Congratulations on 50 people. I'm sure that was terrifying, and you didn't know what was going to happen if the cops were going to come shoot you down. But it shut, because that's happened, and I've been on the front line too many times, and been subject to police violence, to know that it's not true. But some examples of how this is playing out, this MMIW situation and the lack of advocacy. We've got, Molly Tibbetts in 2012. It was a nationwide search, right? Everybody was very aware that this white woman had gone missing in Iowa. At the same time, Amber Johnson Barr up in Alaska, Kotzebue, Alaska, she was 10. She also went missing. But you don't know her. You don't know her story. You don't know that it took many days to find her. The exact same time that we're looking for Molly Tibbetts, nobody is looking for this little 10-year-old girl who was sexually assaulted and beaten to death and left behind a school. And it's the egregiousness of these crimes, right? The nature of how these women's bodies are being found. We just lost a two-spirit relative who was Chippewa Turtle Mountain and traveled out to New York. This was in 2024, 25. He met some people online and went out to visit them, and the officers who found his body, when it was all said and done, said it was the worst thing he'd ever seen in his career. It was months worth of torture, months long worth of torture to this body. And that's a very common theme that we're seeing right now, is it's not just trafficking. It's not just, that there's no culpability and no consequences happening to the traffickers. It's the kind of crime that's taking place, and the disgust and all of that hate, all of that racism comes out into these individual bodies, and there's no advocacy. We just had an experience with a Blackfoot friend of ours who wanted to go home to her homelands. She'd been shot a year and a half, 2 years ago, in right around her stomach area. So she walks with a limp. Her half-brother shot her, and she'll be forever disabled. She wanted to go home, and she got out there, and nobody was there to help her. Her family turned her away. The system turned her away. The tribe did not have support. A lot of people think that tribes are showing up and supporting their own people, but tribes are dealing with severity, right? They're dealing with a lot of disparity within their own ranks, and there's no support coming to them either. And where the government already isn't doing the job, they're not going to do it just because you beg for more and you beg for help. So she was out there and stuck in the most vulnerable situation I've ever seen. Didn't have a working phone sometimes. You couldn't get her into a motel because she's so isolated and it's so rural. Her car, it broke down. She didn't have a vehicle. And she's in this area where, she had been shot previously, just a year and a half prior. And getting her out of there was almost an impossibility, being way out here. You couldn't just put her on a plane because she had this dog that we have to care for, and she's trauma bonded to this dog, and it's a very emotional situation. And that's the case. If we wouldn't have been here as a collective to help support her with Techahila and, fund her wherever we could, call grocery stores in Hot Springs, Montana, and say, hey, I've got a stranded woman in the one hotel you have in your town who can't get to you because she can't walk through the snow because she literally will fall. Can you help me get her groceries? And the woman was like, you just happen to call me on delivery day. I can get groceries down to her. And we had to build a whole support team out here for her of the people who had more access to resources and more access to, putting her up in an Airbnb once we got her back out here. We had to send somebody from the collective, pay for the gas to go drive out to Hot Springs, Montana, and bring her home back to Detroit because she got herself so stuck there. And there is no safety net, and there is so much vulnerability that she could have died. It was gonna, there was a very likely chance. And I don't tell these stories to scare people, but to just bring awareness about the level of care that has to go into these situations, and it cannot fall back on the hands of state governments or the United States government, because again, if they completely wipe out this population, they get the rest of the land. So the United States government is not invested in Native rights. I don't get asked to speak in Senate. I'm not going to get an invitation there, maybe ever. That is fine. But I have to do that work down here, amongst the people who do care and who are aware and who are trying to do the right thing to end what is still a current genocide. We are still in genocide as Native people in this country. And that's not to, build guilt and shame here, but it is to bring awareness, right, to the epidemic and to how lost and hopeless we're kind of feeling as a population out there, because we don't know where to turn, right? We've got the Salish Scouts are a group that it's like a motorcycle gang. The Red Drum motorcycle gang is actually a motorcycle gang that goes out and looks for women, and they're funded by other natives. It's like they're not getting funded by the grants that I might get access to out here. Nobody wants to fund MMIW work. So it's all very grassroots, and it's all dire and important. And I speak on the historical harms to bring to light what's going on currently, right? If they could impact matriarchy then, now you have what you see as this patriarchal culture, right? That's rife with pedophilia, that's rife with dysfunction, corruption, because they've lost their way back to that feminine spirit. And I am like, there's in our culture many genders, many sexualities. But so it's not to harp on that. It's more so to bring in an understanding of when you've lost your way and when you minimize and diminish any part of your population, this is going to be the end result. And when you're not caring for the most vulnerable in your communities, that will eventually impact everybody out here, right? Now that we're normalizing pedophilia because Congress isn't doing anything about the Epstein situation, they're refusing to make a bigger case about this. The rest of the United States is looking at that and saying like, oh, it might be fine, right? We don't got to take care of our kids the way we thought to. All these people are molesting and raping children. Why would we change that? And it started historically. There's a root here of where it started, where it began, and it's not going to stop anytime soon. So I just encourage all of us to, take a deeper look into if you can really hone in on the genocide and how it happened. And I have a book list that I share with folks when I give these talks. I'll share that list out with all of you. And I think there's some podcasts on there as well that give the accurate, true history. Because a lot of the books you might be reading are oftentimes written from a white lens or from white historians that went in and studied those tribes, but they're not coming from the Native voice, the Native experience with actual relevance to the genocide. And in that, a lot of people are walking around misinformed and have no idea. Like, if I asked how many people in this room, whose territory you are on, how many people would know, right? So we're up against erasure. That's the problem that Native communities are facing currently, is not just racial disparity, not just that we can't have DEI. We are up against absolute erasure. And the fact that, like I was speaking this to my hosts last night, that I have two full-blood Native boys, there's not a drop of anything other than Hidatsa and Assiniboine Lakota in their blood, is a rare thing. We don't walk into a room, and oftentimes, I'm guessing there's not many other natives in this room, We don't get to have that experience where we walk out into the world and experience likeness and sameness with other people. So we're fighting against not only our own trauma and trying to heal that, but we're fighting against that nobody even knows that we're still alive. A lot of people think that either we're completely gone and dead, or that we're living wealthy off of casino money, like what's been said to me earlier, and that we're doing great. We get free college, we don't pay taxes. According to the IRS, I have paid taxes every year since I was 14. You know, like I have done that. That's not a true thing. And I am a federally recognized Native American, right? I've got my paperwork that says I'm Native American. I don't get to not pay taxes. I don't live wealthy off of casino money. I am fighting the social services system every single day to try to keep me and these children alive, right? So there's a lot of misinformation as well. And I'm grateful for the time that you guys gave me up here. I'm grateful that you guys were such receptive listeners. It's a very, very hard pill to swallow because we are on Native land. We only exist because this land was cared for and stewarded for thousands of years beautifully, and in such a way that it was a relationship that we had with the air, the land, the water. We don't look at it as if it's just, something to be mowed. We look at it as if it's got autonomy, it's got rights, we've got to take care of it because it takes care of us. And without that knowledge and that wisdom being a very central part of who you are, we will continue the pedophilia, we will continue the corruption, we will continue the human rights violations. And it started here, and now it's in Palestine, and now it's in other parts of the world, right? And we're continuing to perpetrate. So I just bring these themes to mind to try to connect what's going on and give you all like a broad picture in a very short amount of time. I think, how long did you want me to speak? I'm gonna stop now. Take this coffee.